Welcome to Unhinged Addiction and ADHD meds and sobriety. Being ADHD and sobriety, I think that this is a great topic. I think it's really controversial because I have talked and been helping a lot of people with sobriety for a while. And I'm very open about it. I am ADHD. I got diagnosed ADD at 13, re-diagnosed ADHD at 17, and everyone wants to know, thoughts on, if I'm taking Ritalin or Vyvanse or Adderall. Are you still sober, and what opinions are on this? And everybody seems to have like really strong opinions on it. It's a very controversial, I want to say, take. And I'll share with you mine and what my beliefs are behind this. If you're new, hit the like and follow button. If you're here on Spotify, make sure you subscribe. I do release a podcast every Wednesday. I'm trying to get to the point that I start releasing podcasts on Saturdays too. We'll see if we ever get to that point. But right now it is every Wednesday a new podcast comes out. And if you haven't followed me on social media, check out Eric B. Zink on YouTube. It's Eric Zink on Facebook. It's the Mr. Impulsive on Instagram and TikTok. And one of the things, I have an account that I created. It was called The Life of Zink. And I did this account just to share about ADHD because it is something I really enjoy sharing about. ADHD has always been a part of my life. It's something I really didn't understand. And it's the one diagnosis that when I got diagnosed for ADHD, again, it was originally ADD. This is like 93, 94. And then I was re-diagnosed to ADHD. I did grow up in Michigan. And so both of those were around for a while. I know it's changed now, even now over time. But it was Michigan, man. ADD is what pretty much everyone was getting kind of diagnosed with if they were getting a diagnosis. And then it switched to ADHD. And so I think it's just really important to understand that, for one, ADHD is real. Your frontal cortex, prefrontal cortex is not maturing like other people's cortexes do. Our brain is not the same. Our baseline dopamine is not the same as other people's dopamine. That is why with some people a stimulant affects them in a non-energetic way. It's almost like it's just getting our dopamine up to normal. So how dopamine affects us, I think, is really important to understand when it comes to ADHD, and especially what leads us into addiction. I don't blame being ADHD for my addiction. If I would have known that ADHD plays a role in addiction, maybe I would have looked at it a little bit differently. Maybe I would have respected alcohol a little differently. I don't know. But I will say this, I didn't know how much hand in hand they play. And if you look at a lot of the stats out there, you'll see there are more addicts with ADHD than without. I mean, if you have ADHD, the likelihood of you becoming an addict is extremely high. And alcohol is such an easy one to kind of get you down that pathway. And so when it came to my addiction, I struggled whenever I got off my meds. And if you are struggling with addiction, you're trying to get sober, download Sunflower Sober. This is your sign. Download Sunflower Sober. It's on iOS and Google Play. It's Sunflower, like those big yellow flowers you see, sober. There's a 24-hour AI-sponsored support. There's a great community in there. There's doctors in there. There's a learn section, journaling section. I mean, you can learn all about addiction and everything you need to get sober and stay sober with Sunflower. So when it comes to my ADHD, I get diagnosed at 13 and I had struggled in school. I felt like I was different than everybody. I felt stupid. I felt really dumb. I didn't understand why, no matter how hard I studied or I would do projects or my mom would help me with school projects, I'd forget to turn them in. I'd have so much trouble listening and like retaining stuff. And man, when I got diagnosed ADD, like the world like all of a sudden kind of made sense. Like I felt smart all of a sudden. I was taking Ritalin. Ritalin is a amphetamine salt. And so yes, at 13 years old, I was taking an amphetamine salt. Do I regret it? No, not at all. Not at all, because I think my life would have been a lot worse without it. So I'm very, very grateful actually for it. I'm a firm believer in ADHD meds. When you live with ADHD like I have, like you're not supposed to struggle this much in life. You're not supposed to not be able to collect your thoughts and to be paralyzed and not even be able to find almost like the motivation or energy to go be productive. It's debilitating. You feel stupid. You just beat yourself up. It's the worst feeling in the world. And so, man, when I had meds in me of like Ritalin and stuff, and I could study, and I was getting good grades all of a sudden, and I felt like I was living up to my potential. Well, the problem I would always run into, though, is there was always this thing around ADHD of like, oh, it's all in your head and you don't need meds. There's always was this split. And I think anybody who's ADHD, especially my generation, because you got to remember, I'm in high school now in the 90s. The 90s and early 2000s especially, I think there was this huge, really big split between, like, is it even real or not? Even now still, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, ADHD isn't real. Everybody has ADHD. No, we don't all have ADHD, dude. Sorry, bro. But for me, once my life really started becoming complete, and I met my first wife. Her name was Gillian, and I'll never forget this. I met her. I've always been honest with people that I've met. Like when I was dating, that I'm ADHD. I was taking Adderall at the time, so I met her when I was 18 years old. At that time, I was already re-diagnosed with ADHD. I was taking Adderall, doing great in school, really able to focus, and at that time, I was experimenting with drugs. I was using drugs. So when I met her, though, things did kind of change. I really became more focused in a relationship than I was like, hey, I want to go out and party. So I really focused in on that. And it got to the point that we ended up like living together. And during this time, like, yes, being on my ADHD meds didn't mean like I didn't drink and I didn't party and I didn't try things. I did. I definitely did drink. I definitely tried to party and would find a party. But it wasn't like nonstop every single day. And again, I'm not making up excuses for this. I'm just sharing the reality of what my life was like. But on the weekends, yeah, I'm going to tear it up and party. Dude, I'm 19 years old, 18 years old. Like, I'm going to live life, man. That was my whole mentality. I'm going to live forever. And when I ended up struggling in college, we ended up moving in together down in Florida. And she pretty much convinced me, like, not to take my meds. Like, you don't need to take your meds. And I believed her. I was like, all right, like, we're together. We're going to be married forever, dude. Forever, ever and ever, man. So, okay, I won't take my meds. And it sucked. As soon as I stopped taking my meds, it's like, you just start looking for stuff to give you this, like, dopamine, like, to give you this focus. And it's hard. Like, I could do routine fine. So, waking up and going to work and doing the routine I could do. But man, if like trying to find motivation on when it wasn't like needed to be done, it wasn't part of this routine, it was hard. We lived with her family, and so it was like I had a bunch of crutches around me that I didn't realize, because her dad would be like, hey, we're going to go work on, this or whatever. And so I just get up and I go help him. I learned how to use, cutting torches and weld and have beehives, all this stuff. But I do remember that it was actually hard to focus. And man, just drinking made it easier, especially with no meds. And it wasn't all of a sudden like just drinking was fun. Like drinking, if I wanted to clean and I realized if I had some beers, like I could clean. If I needed to do laundry, if I had to do some of these really mundane tasks that I didn't like doing, man, if I had some beer or if I had a shot or two, it was so much easier. I'm now listening to music. I'm having fun. Not really realizing like I'm getting my dopamine one way or another. I'm getting my dopamine now from alcohol. And the problem is like with Adderall or with even Ritalin and a lot of the ADHD meds, is it's dispersing dopamine continually for a long time. With alcohol, like there's no self-medicating with alcohol. The dopamine highs and lows are massive. And so now all of a sudden you're having these highs and lows with the dopamine. And it's like your brain is going, well, if I drink more, like life will be easier. Like this will last longer. I mean, it makes sense. If I drink 2 beers and I'm pretty focused, if I drink 4 beers, I'm going to be even more focused and it will last longer, right? Because that's how it's supposed to work. At least that's how my brain thought it was supposed to work. And in reality, it does not work that way. And I remember she would tell me that, well, you're an alcoholic now and you're drinking too much. It was like, all right, then, if I didn't drink, I struggled more. I got depressed. And the depression was, a dopamine depletion and drop, but also I knew I had something wrong with me. And so just trying to deal with the thoughts and stuff alone in your head was really difficult. And she was kind of an enabler. I remember like I would not drink for a little while, and then she'd be like, oh, I miss how it tastes to kiss you with alcohol on your breath, or whatever. And so then all of a sudden it was like, okay, well, that's a green light to drink again, and I can drink. And so I was always finding reasons to drink. I also smoked a lot. And that's one of the hardest things, man. The hardest addiction for me to break was smoking. Nicotine, that microdosing of dopamine nonstop, just putting it into your habits and your patterns, man, it becomes very paralyzing. And so That's the one thing I noticed with like ADHD, really looking back, is I found a lot of ways to self-medicate. You do a task for 30 minutes and you go smoke a cigarette. Well, man, you have a beer and a cigarette, and you can focus even in a little bit more, it seems like, and you have a little bit more energy and motivation, because like alcohol for me never really unwound me. It wasn't like a relaxant for me. It would amp me up. And I think there's a lot of people out there that can really relate. You drink a beer and you're like, oh, I had a hard day at work, so I'm going to come home and I'll crack a six pack and just relax and blow off steam, man. You give me a six pack in me and I'm like, dude, what are we doing, bro? Like, we're going out, we're going to go party. Like, let's get this going. So dopamine really gave me that reverse effect. Alcohol really gave me that reverse effect. And it gave me a great feeling. It numbed me. It's socially acceptable. That was the weirdest thing ever. And I know I've shared on this before, of how alcohol is socially acceptable and it is totally okay to drink, but God forbid you bust out your Adderall in the morning because you're going to take 10 milligrams before you get your day started as prescribed, and you're a meth addict. Like, that's the part of that blows my mind, is that's how the stigma is. It's not that, hey, by the way, alcohol is one of the deadliest detoxes there is. You can go into DTs and die. I've had friends die from it. But hey, don't worry about that. I mean, alcohol addiction, very common, very rampant. But hey, that's okay, man, because Budweiser, dude, get those Clydesdales out there and have some fun. But dude, you touch a prescribed medication from a psychiatrist that specializes in ADHD, and you're a meth addict. I mean, that's the part that I just laugh about. And so, I didn't take my meds for a while, and I really struggled, and it was difficult. And it was funny because I was going back to college and stuff like that, at Hillsborough Community College. And man, when I would take my meds, like, I could tell, like, I could listen in class, I had better grades, I was motivated in class, I had goals, I had dreams. It was like a whole change of mindset. And man, you take that away from me, and I was just trying to get through the day. Like, I wanted to get through the day without going bonkers, and that was hard to do. And it affects you in just so many ways, of just the motivation and to the paralysis of wanting to do something, but you physically can't get yourself to the point of doing something. And it's like, why is this happening? Because this isn't normal. Like, it shouldn't be this way, but you're so paralyzed and you don't understand why. Like, it really, really beats you up mentally. And so, I had quit for a while with my Adderall, and man, I really relied on alcohol. And then when I ended up getting divorced from her is when I found cocaine. And at a certain point, I got back onto my Adderall because I was always more successful with my Adderall. I was more successful surprisingly, I was more successful when I could think straight, and I was never on these massive doses. I've never, when I trialed and errored it with my meds a few different times with doctors, there's times I was on like 40 milligrams to try it. Man, like the first time I did 40 milligrams, I was like, never again am I doing this. 40 milligrams of Adderall made me high. Like, I'm not going to lie, it made me high. It made me hyper-focused. Don't interrupt me, and I am going to do this one task to the perfection that I can do all day long. I could not multitask. I couldn't go from one task to another task. I really struggled a lot with it. And so, just trial and erroring it with my doctor. I mean, there was a period in time where I was doing 10 and 20. And then 10 and 10 was the magic number. 10 in the morning and 10 in the afternoon. Instant release, because the extended release it lasted like too long. I couldn't get the timing down right, and it didn't allow me to unwind. I don't really hit a dopamine crash. I'm still productive even at night, kind of doing things that I like, that I can find natural dopamine in. But it allows me to be, in my eyes, normal and motivated and just how I want to be. And when I got with Brandy, on and off, I would be taking my meds, and it just kind of depended on work, where I was living at the time, if I could get my meds or not, if I had insurance or not. And when I got with Brandy, again, I went through this whole phase with her. She was like, you don't need to take those meds. And man, we were addicts. Like, we were balls to the wall addicts, and we drank. And she ended up getting diagnosed ADHD. She was on Adderall for a little bit, and then she didn't want to take it anymore. But man, it's amazing when I was with people that I was pretty sure they were ADHD. how convincing they were to not take ADHD meds. And I don't know why they were that way. Maybe because they were undiagnosed. I don't know. And I just remember just, man, going, this is hard. And so going back to alcohol, I'm working at Mike Thompson's RV, I remember. And the worst part is like when you don't take your meds and you are trying to function with ADHD, drugs do give you the dopamine, they give you focus. You know, you can be a functioning, in a sense, addict. You're not going to function forever, but you can kind of like tread water through. It's difficult for sure. But the worst part is like you're watching parts of your life crumbling still though around you, where you're like missing parts and you're like not handling bills right or whatever, or you're supposed to make this phone call and you're just keep putting it off. Like, which reminds me already, I forgot to do a phone call today. I was supposed to. Dang it. But and so even medicated, you still struggle with this stuff. But it's amazing how you watch your life like really kind of like crumbling at the edges, and so you're using because it does numb it. You don't have to face any of this because you just use, and you're watching little parts crumble. And man, when I would get on my meds, I could get on my meds in 30 days. I could get my life back together. And like, that's what I would do. I would go through these phases where I'd be off my meds. I'd be struggling. I'd be doing a lot more alcohol. I'd be doing coke. And if I got on my meds, it was amazing, the night and day difference where, like, yeah, I still would drink. I still, like, at this point, I'm a full-blown addict. But I wasn't using it, like, in that medicative route. And so I'd find myself, like, not drinking during work all of a sudden, where I used to would be drinking during work. I wouldn't be doing as much coke during work, if any coke during work, because I could kind of function during work and I wasn't drunk. And so I didn't feel like I needed cocaine to offset that. And so it was amazing. It was like a life raft. And that's the thing I think I really struggle a lot with is when I see people out there who are ashamed to be ADHD and take Adderall or Vyvanse or any of this. And again, I'm not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. I'm none of that. My name's Eric, man. I'm a recovering cocaine and alcoholic addict. Those are my drugs of choice. I share through a lot of lived experience. And I just wanted to be normal, man. I just wanted to function. And I just see so many people out there struggling and they're ashamed and afraid to take meds. And what if I get addicted to it? And what? I'll say this, I'm blunt about a lot of stuff. I'm dependent on Adderall. If I don't take Adderall in a week, I'm struggling, man. I need it. I'm depressed. I'm not myself. I know that. And yeah, if I go through the withdrawals, full on withdrawals and stuff, it'll give me time. Like I'll get back to normal. But guess what? I am dependent on it. I'm not jonesing out. I'm not, oh my God, I need to go do, blow all of a sudden, or I need to drink all of a sudden. But I have went through like Adderall shortages and stuff where I start to really realize like, shit, my life is kind of dependent on this. And I'm still, even with that, I'm okay. Because when I was heavily using, again, I wasn't taking my meds. And when I first got sober, the first thing I actually did was get my meds. And I was on my meds in like 2 days after I stopped doing alcohol and coke. Going through DTs and shit. So might as well have a clear head and focus while I'm going through DTs as much as I can. But I was going through DTs. I'm struggling a lot. But I started taking my meds. And that was the weirdest thing because I was be sitting there like sweating, going through withdrawals. But I was like, okay, I have to do this. And let's go to a meeting, and let me go just try and take a walk right now. And like, I got to get out of the house here a little bit. Like I was noticing myself like functioning a little bit. Like I could not imagine going through withdrawals with an unmedicated ADHD head. I think I would have went bonkers, man. I would have relapsed because the ADHD just in me it's very paralyzing. And so I had gotten back on my meds. I start like functioning when I'm getting sober. And I didn't really realize and pay that much attention, I guess, to the stigma, because I never ran into a lot of issues with my therapist. And I don't know if it's just because I knew how to talk to a therapist. I'd have a doctor's appointment when I needed a therapist, and I'd moved, and I would just be like, hey, I was diagnosed ADD, I was re-diagnosed this. Here's what I've taken that hasn't worked. Here's what works. Here's my prescription doses. And like doctors just, okay, cool. And I've always went to a psychiatrist just because I wanted to have my health, in the way of heart, monitored, and just I wanted stuff that wasn't just thrown at me, like I know that sometimes doctors will do, is they'll just write some scripts if they're family practitioners and they don't specialize in ADHD. And also, I kind of wanted like the person that, like, if there was a new med out, could hit me up and be like, hey, there's this new med, let's try this maybe. I'd be down. So I always went to psychiatrists that specialize in ADHD. Never had a problem getting my prescriptions. And here I am getting sober. And like, there's a lot of stigma then all of a sudden around this whole sobriety community of like, dude, you're not sober. Like, you got sober from cocaine and alcohol, but you're not sober from stimulants, and you're not it's like, really? Like, do you know me? I didn't know there was this one only way to get sober. And your idea of sober isn't my way to get sober, because I struggle. And I don't think that's right. I don't think we're placed on this earth to struggle like we do sometimes. And here I struggle when I'm not on it. So I would just take it and not tell anybody. They don't drug test you in NA or AA or any of this stuff. And so I'd just be like, yeah, I'm sober. And I didn't want to have those conversations. And it was sad, because every now and then I would see somebody speak up about like Xanax, or they were prescribed a benzos, Ativan, and they would get just destroyed. Or, they'd speak about Ritalin and ADHD, and they would get just destroyed. It was okay to be Kelly sober. That's okay. But God forbid, man, a stimulant, you're a crackhead still. Even though you're functioning, you're going to meetings, you're showing up to family, you're working your 12 steps, but it didn't matter. And it shows the hypocritical side of one of the things I do struggle when it comes to NA and AA. And again, NA and AA have saved a lot of lives, and I know that. And it is a system and a program that does work for a lot of people. And I am all for, trial and error, man. Find what works for you. I know a lot of people that are in those programs that are on SSRIs. And when you really like dissect that big book and you're like, okay, let me really analyze this big book. It's nothing that, like, you're not supposed to have any mind altering anything, which means an SSRI is a serotonin reinhibitor. There's a lot of serotonin drugs out there, like MDMA, Molly, ecstasy, which are, offshoots of that. Crystal meth actually affects a lot of serotonin. There's a lot of serotonin drugs. So essentially an SSRI, you're not sober because it's affecting your serotonin. And it's just funny to see people try and fight that. But I was on my meds, and man, when I was on my meds, it was amazing how I just didn't have these desires to use, and I could just function. And I loved that. I loved being like what I felt was normal. I loved that I could do and be the human being that I wanted to be. And I didn't have this huge draw. Like, I could actually focus in on my sobriety. Because that was a hard thing when I was getting sober. It's like that voices in your heads telling you to relapse, or telling you just one more, or this weekend's going to be different. I would give into those voices a lot when I was not taking my meds. But when I was taking my meds, I wouldn't give into those voices, because it was like, no, I know I'm having this conversation internally, and I would be going through these cravings, but I ultimately would come out on top, because it was like, no, I'm 7 days sober. I don't let's go for 8 days sober. Let's go for 10 days sober. And so it was a lot easier for me to fight these cravings and these urges. The whole mental side was huge for me. And so when I got back on my meds, I mean, that is one of the key things that really helped me get back to, essentially, I guess you would say, being sober. Taking my meds, I didn't feel like I needed to self-medicate anymore. A lot of my using was self-medication, self-medicating for trauma, self-medicating for depression, self-medicating for ADHD. I didn't need to do that anymore. I could just humanly function. And I don't think you should ever be ashamed for the meds that you take, and they're tools. Just like, I lost my dad, and when he committed suicide, I was really struggling with panic attacks. And I'm on ADHD meds. I'm telling people, like, I'm like a month sober, man. I'm 3 weeks sober. I'm going into panic attacks. I'm telling my psychiatrist. And benzos weren't a DOC, and so they prescribed me Xannies, and so I was prescribed Xanax, and I didn't like the way that Xanax made me feel. Like, and people are going, "Oh, you're speedballing. You can't take Xanax and Adderall together. You're going to speedball." No, they do offset each other some, but not fully. Like I could still be focused and not freaking out. And it was a great feeling at times. And I really needed that at times because, I mean, ultimately, I think anyone out there who has struggled a lot with trauma will know, like when this shit hits and you are thinking about it and you are just losing yourself to it and you're not here anymore, man. You are in a prison in your head. That taking this and being able to function through it and not reach for a bottle and go just ape shit is huge. Because that was my problem. My self-medication wasn't like, okay, I'm going to do 2 lines of cocaine and 1 beer, and then, I'll do that again this afternoon, and then I'm done. Like, as soon as alcohol hit my lips, there was no stopping it. As soon as I would do cocaine, it was gone. I had to do it all. I could not budget. I could not save it. I would become very obsessed with it. My brain would get hijacked. And that's a thing I didn't really realize is like how easily hijacked your brain is by your emotions, especially with ADHD. You get some of this in your system. You're like, dude, let's do this. And you'll be telling yourself, like, I'm not going to do it anymore. Okay, like, I'm going to hide the bag. I'm done. And 5 minutes later, you're like looking for the bag, pulling it back out, laying out another. You can't stop. And that was me. I couldn't stop. I had to do it all. As long as I had drugs, I was going to do them. But like Xanax, I looked at this as a medication. I didn't want to abuse it. I didn't really like the feeling it gave me. And I didn't ever count it as a relapse. I didn't count any of it as a relapse because these weren't my drugs of choice. I wasn't obsessed with them. And again, I've talked to other people and they're like, you're not sober. And it's like, okay, if that makes you help you sleep at night and helps keep you sober, cool, dude. Keep your thoughts to yourself. Because I'm not killing myself. I'm living the life that I've always wanted. I'm so grateful for the life that I have right now. Like, you have no right to take that away from me. You haven't walked in my shoes, and I haven't walked in your shoes. When it comes to Cali sober, like, I don't care if somebody's Cali sober. If you're not sticking a needle in your arm and you're not passed out underneath the underpass and you're homeless, shooting fentanyl, kids and wife don't know where you're at, like, instead you're home and you're hitting a pin every now and then, like, so be it, dude. At least you're showing up for your kids, and eventually if you want to take that on, cool too, whatever. And I think that's the problem, is we get almost like invested in other people's sobriety more than ours. And it's almost like if I can tell other people how to get sober and what they need to do to stay sober, that really means I have it figured out. And I don't think we ever have it figured out. I mean, I watch people get like addicted to meetings and they have to go to meetings. If they don't go to meetings, they are freaked out that they're going to relapse. Dude, I don't want to be that way. If I don't take my Adderall, I'm not going to relapse, but I'm going to struggle. So I don't think it's all that bad. And I think that's something that halts a lot of people from getting sober, maybe when they could get sober a lot sooner, is that they're not going to take their meds. They're going to look at their meds differently. And then there's this whole thing of like, well, if I can't take my ADHD meds, maybe I shouldn't take my bipolar meds, or all meds are bad. And then not all meds are bad. Like, medication wasn't made to just destroy us. I mean, it was made with the intent to make life easier, to heal us in certain ways, where our brain may have not be perfect in that aspect. And I think that's okay. Like, I tell people all the time, and I've ran into a ton of people that were like, if it wasn't for my ADHD meds, like, I'd probably be using it again. But with my meds and taking them, I'm able to focus in. I'm able to have this great life. I've been sober all this time. And in my eyes, like, absolutely, sir, you are sober. Absolutely, ma'am, you are sober. Because you're living the life that you deserve. And I don't think it's right to have people tell us otherwise. That's one thing I really struggled with a lot with NA and AA. And what really drove me away from the programs, was how heavy God-based it was. And it assumes immediately that I'm a Christian and I have to believe in God and I have to always pray and I have to do all this and I have to listen to all this. And I can't take any kind of medications. I don't agree with it. I agree with finding your own way to make it work. So I think it's important to know when you are getting sober to realize that, there isn't this right way. And if you find something that's working for you, why not? I mean, drinking alcohol, doing cocaine wasn't working for me. I mean, I was ruining my life. I kept getting divorced and ruining marriages and ruining people. I'd ruin jobs, I'd ruin my reputations, and then I'd have to rebuild stuff, and it was exhausting. So if I could get through life and not be exhausting anymore and exhaust myself, like why not? And so now that's the thing is I do go and I see a psychiatrist. I've seen a psychiatrist for a while now. I take my meds still. I am 45 years old. I take 10 milligrams in the morning, 10 milligrams in the afternoon. I've talked to my doctor about it because it is a stimulant. It does wear on your heart some. I've done a lot of stimulant drugs too. Of maybe going to like Strattera, like a non-stimulant ADHD med. And I've kind of thought about it and like, but why? Why am I going to fuck with what works? That's the thing I've always kind of learned. Like, I've been through a lot in life, and I have something down that works. And until it's like death, I'm not going to change it. My blood pressure is still good. My blood pressure is affected more by my anxiety than it is by any of the meds that I take. And even when it comes down to meds that I take, I only take Adderall now. I take it like 5 days a week. If I remember, I take it 5 days a week, twice a day. And I run to a lot of days. I'm working a lot more now, and I'm doing a lot more like with social media and stuff. So I am remembering my second dose a lot more. Where for a long time, I would always remember my morning dose, but I'd like half and half forget my afternoon dose. And I've still had times where I'm like working and I'm going, dude, why is this such a struggle? And like it's push to just do what's the minimum right now. And then I'm realizing like, oh shit, dude, I didn't take my ADHD meds, and here's why I'm struggling. So maybe I should do that. That's been more of an eye opener, I guess you could say, almost than anything else. And so it's been a bit to really find that balance that works for me. And I think anybody out there who's struggling, it's finding your balance. Knowing that we're different. Like, just own that, man. We're different. Our brains are different. Our dopamine is different. Our prefrontal cortex is different, and that's okay. Because I wouldn't trade my ADHD for the world. My ADHD gives me some of the best problem-solving skills there are. I'm extremely charming. I'm outgoing. I can get so motivated. I'm very business-oriented. I love to overcome obstacles and challenges. Like, there's a lot with ADHD I really love. And so I don't look at it as like a handicap by any means. But you got to be aware of how this is going to affect you with addiction, and also, knowing that meds are okay. And I guess that's why I do share on this, is because I want people to know that it's okay. It's okay to be not okay. It's okay to like have to take some medication. And if you don't want to share about it, you don't want to tell people that you're on meds, then no harm, no foul with that. Like, you don't have to. You don't have to answer to anybody but yourself. And if you're living the life that you want to live and you're not hurting anyone else, then why change it? Because I don't think you should have to. And so, I hope this helps somebody out there really realize that maybe one of the reasons you're relapsing a lot and you're really struggling is because, you have been diagnosed ADHD and you just don't think that you should take it. And again, you have to remember that all ADHD meds are different. Like, Ritalin is a lot more like cocaine than what Adderall is, and vice versa. And then you have Vyvanse. Some of this stuff produces dopamine, some of it traps dopamine, some of it produces and traps dopamine. And there's a gene swab test that you swab the inside of your cheek and you send it in. And it'll tell you what meds are going to affect you how. And so it can help you a lot more easier with like the trial and error with meds to find what's going to work and actually have results for you. Instead of just trying to pop different pills and you're like 90 days into it going, okay, I'm not doing any better. These pills are making me jittery, and trying to explain to your doctor how you feel. But hopefully this helps somebody realize that, you are worth it. Don't let anyone tell you any differently. I'm like a huge person when it comes to making sure that you know your mental health is so different than what your addiction is, because your addiction, I think, in a lot of cases is self-medicating for your mental health. So if you can correctly medicate your mental health, you're not going to struggle with addiction as much. I'm a firm believer. And again, this is my belief. But I've also talked to a lot of others that I've really made this a very firm belief of mine. And so, anybody out there getting sober right now, anyone out there fighting through, I'm proud of you. Don't give up. It definitely gets better. You're definitely worth it. And, talk to your doctor. Be honest and real with your doctor. You find that a lot of doctors understand addiction. And I've never had a doctor turn me away after I told them I was a cocaine addict and an alcoholic. Because I tell them I'm sober and here's, this was a part of my sobriety. And a lot of doctors do get that. Again, I hope that you enjoyed the podcast. If you haven't followed along, follow along. If you're on YouTube, hit the like and follow button. Again, this is your sign. Download Sunflower Sober if you're struggling. I do a lot of lives here coming up, and I've been trying to start doing some lives where I get on TikTok and help people later because I know what it's like just to go through it. Sunflower Sober is great because of the community in there, so you always have people you can kind of talk to and throw things out into this community. The AI sponsor, Sam, I think is amazing just because you have something to talk to that is just, it's not enabling and it's very like just solving problem oriented to give you solutions and give you coping. Journaling section in there. There's a lot in there. It's an amazing resource. And then, if you're still really, really struggling, I mean, nothing wrong with rehab. Refined Recovery is amazing. If you click the link in the bio, if you're on YouTube, I have links to all this stuff. And just don't give up, man. For the ones out there fighting through, don't give up. I'd set a goal for the rest of this year, starting in September, that I would do a podcast every single Wednesday until the end of the year. And I'm almost there. And I'm really damn proud of that. This was something I was not sure if I would be able to accomplish. But it was a part of me that was like, I have to show up for myself. And part of me showing up for myself was actually this podcast and releasing one every single Wednesday. So I'm stoked that I'm slowly almost there. Once I get it down where it's every Wednesday, I do want to get to the Wednesdays and Saturdays. I find it sometimes hard though to like bring on guests and what I really want to do with this podcast. So I'm just kind of seeing how it evolves. It's evolving more than what I thought it would actually. So what it's done in a year, I'm actually really impressed with. So we'll see where this, getting through the rest of this year and then what the next year holds. So everybody who follows along, make sure you hit that like and follow button. I really appreciate you. If you're getting sober, know that you're not alone. Know that you can do it. I believe in you. You got it one day at a time.